정말 속고도 당하고 또 당해도 또 다시 이 자리에 와 있는지 내가 미쳤나봐 자존심도 없는지 너에게 돌아와 쳇바퀴 돌듯이 이러면 안 되는데 하면서 오늘도 이러고 있어 너 너에게 자꾸 돌아가 왜 그런지 몰라 왜 그런지 몰라
Special Issue Task Force, how can I help you? Back joining us in the studio for Special Issue Task Force is Hayoung. Hayoung, hello to you.
Hi, SJ, the dancing machine.
Hayoung, question for you. What song can you dance to? There are certain songs where you know the choreo, right? 피디님 잘 적어주세요.
Tell me.
Tell me? You can do the Tell Me dance?
Tell me. You can't?
I can.
Everyone knows how to dance Tell Me.
Oh,
dance
Tell
to
Me.
Tell Me.
Tell Me was the first song where I...
Tell me. Tell me. I don't know.
Oh my
if
goodness.
I still remember
But you have to
the
start off. You have to
choreography or
start off in the
not.
beginning. Oh my goodness.
Or G.
Guys.
소녀시대 Girls' Generation. G, G, G,
I think if we have like a 특집 special,
Oh.
we should do like a you know what
Dance
special we
special?
were always thinking about? Pretending we're out on a 회식 and we have like a 노래방 machine and we just have 회식 on a show.
Oh.
And then we sing and dance.
Brilliant.
That'll be
brilliant.
fun, right?
That would be fun.
And then Professor Demoya is going to be there too.
He will need some wine before he start dancing, right?
I don't even think he drinks. Anyways, let's go into our first story today.
Oh, but before
What?
we begin, how do you like my new hairstyle? I got a haircut.
Again?
Oh, you didn't even notice it?
You got it last time.
Yeah, but it got much shorter.
Why?
Why?
Why'd you get another cut?
I wanted to try a new style.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't like it?
Is that on? Is the sound on? I was like, who's laughing right now?
I'm laughing.
Okay, it looks nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
You really meant it, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
This week, South Korea saw one of the most consequential court rulings in its modern constitutional history. Former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo sentenced to 23 years in prison for playing a key role in what the court defined as an insurrection tied to the fair declaration of martial law back in December 3rd of 2024. Just days after the ruling, both Han's legal team and the special prosecutors filed appeals, setting the stage for a second trial, right? So let's start off with the latest updates.
Sure. On January 26th, both sides formally filed appeals with the Seoul Central District Court. Han Duck-soo is appealing his conviction and sentence, while the special prosecutors are also appealing the parts of the ruling where the court found him not guilty. And Han's legal team hasn't yet released detailed reasoning, but they are expected to argue errors in legal interpretation and excessive sentencing. And those arguments will be laid out in a separate appeal brief to the High Court. Meanwhile, prosecutors are challenging the acquittals on two key points. First, the alleged delay of the cabinet meeting to lift martial law, and second, Han's attempts to retroactively satisfy procedural requirements after martial law had already been declared. So both sides are effectively saying the first ruling didn't go far enough in our direction. And it's also worth noting that after the original verdict on January 21st, Han was taken into custody immediately in the courtroom, citing concerns over evidence destruction. And that alone is historic because it's the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a former prime minister has been detained directly as sentencing. And the appeal will now move to a newly established special high court panel dedicated to insurrection cases, expected to begin hearings next month.
Yeah, I mean, this was big because it was much longer than the original.
Yes, 23 years.
Yeah, I think special prosecutors were, looking for 15 years, I think it was initially.
Yes.
And basically the judge said, nope, 15 won't do. 23
Right.
is what's going to happen. So one thing that stood out again is
That's like almost like a life.
well, for him it's
Yes,
life.
for him,
I mean, he's
yeah.
old. You know,
Yes.
he's very old. So that's basically a life sentence. But one thing that stood out for many observers is how the court classified his role in the insurrection. Right, he wasn't treated as someone who merely helped from like the sidelines.
Yes, this is one of the most technical but important parts of the ruling. Originally, prosecutors charged Han as an accessory to the ringleader of the insurrection, but the court pushed back, saying that under Korean criminal law, insurrection isn't handled through general accessory rules. Instead, the law divides participants into three specific categories: the ringleader, key mission participants, and subordinate followers. And the judges ultimately ruled that Han must be treated as a principal offender, as a key mission participant. In other words, not someone who simply failed to stop events, but someone who actively occupied a crucial operational role. And this distinction matters because it allowed the court to impose a much heavier sentence, 23 years. In fact, 8 years longer than what prosecutors had originally requested.
So it's crazy because at the beginning sort of questioning and even before all the court trials were happening, like Han was coming out saying like, oh yeah, I tried to stop him from
Right.
doing it. But, like, what can I do? And I didn't really know about these meetings that were going on. And turns out he was heavily involved
It
with
wasn't
this.
accepted.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the court's reasoning behind the I guess, the tougher sentencing.
Sure. The judges emphasized Han's constitutional duty as prime minister to restrain arbitrary presidential power and protect democratic order. Instead, they concluded that Han chose to join the effort, and the ruling explicitly states that this was a top-down insurrection, often described as a palace coup initiated by then-President Yoon Suk-yeol and his inner circle. And the court said Han believed that the insurrection might succeed, and at that moment, he abandoned his obligation to defend the constitution. And they also found him guilty of additional crimes like signing and later destroying a retroactive martial law document, falsifying official records, violating presidential archives law, and committing perjury during last year's constitutional court hearings when he claimed he had not been aware of the proclamation.
Yeah,
that
so-
was a lie.
Yeah, so the big evidence behind that was that they were saying that there was like a meeting that took place at a certain secret location.
Right.
But he was seen in a CCTV camera footage. Him
That's
going
right.
along with some of the other quote-unquote inner circles. This case, again, no longer just about Han Duck-soo. Again, there's other names to be mentioned here. Monday, the same judicial panel opened another insurrection trial, this time involving the former Justice Minister Park Sung-jae.
Yes, and what's striking is that Park appeared in court claiming he had no prior knowledge of martial law at all and even tried to stop it. But the judges had already made factual findings that directly contradict that claim. And according to court, on the night of December 3rd, Park wrote down the names of cabinet members during the emergency meeting and was the first person to suggest collecting their signatures, a move aimed at creating a procedural legitimacy. And the judges also found that Park continued following up on those signatures afterward, even though some ministers opposed the plan and the signatures were never completed. In Han Duck-soo's sentencing, the court explicitly ruled that persuading cabinet members to sign constituted participation in key insurrection duties. So Park's role is now under intense scrutiny as well. And the panel also stated that former President Yoon personally handed Park documents outlining martial law instructions in advance, again contradicting Park's claim that he was uninformed. And Park is additionally charged with directing preparations for detention facilities and exit bans immediately after martial law was declared. In other words, we're seeing a widening legal examination of how deeply coordinated this operation actually was.
There was a lot of red flags and signs that maybe Park Sung-jae was involved as well. If you guys remember, during the impeachment voting at the National Assembly, the justice minister needs to be present in order for the voting to happen. He made a statement and he left. And at the time, the speaker, of the National Assembly basically said, you are going to get in trouble for what you've just done. You have not played your role as the justice minister. Well, it turns out he might have had something to do with that very martial law.
Right.
So With all this, I want to turn to something that has resonated far beyond the legal circles. During the sentencing, you had the presiding judge, Lee Jin-kwan, suddenly stopped speaking, right?
Yeah, that moment has become symbolic. Judges almost never pause mid-verdict, especially not in a way that reveals emotion. Usually, courtrooms are meant to be dry, technical spaces, but on January 21st, while explaining sentencing, Judge Lee addressed the defense's argument that no one died and that the insurrection lasted only a few hours. He then added a single line. However, that was only because unarmed citizens confronted armed troops and defended the National Assembly. And after saying this, the judge fell silent for about 6 seconds, and he adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. And that brief pause changed the atmosphere of the room. One lawyer later wrote that those tears falling onto a cold judicial robe were the Constitution itself. And another described it as not just a sentimental moment, but constitutional eloquence. And they were referring to Article 103 of Korea's constitution, which says judges rule independently according to their conscience and the law at the same time.
Again, it's people don't understand how close Korea got to the martial law actually being successful.
Right.
We had some people saying that it was a difference between maybe less than a minute because the troops went in and they were about to cut the power off. If the power at the National Assembly was cut off, the voting can't happen because everything is done digitally, right? And so even something that the Constitutional Court Justice at the time, Moon Young-bae, had said was it was the people who went out to the streets and stopped the troops from getting to the National Assembly. And that brief time that they were able to stop them, that difference made the huge difference between the martial law being successful and not being successful. Yet, former President Yoon insists that he was purposely made it short as a warning. No, it was short because the people stopped them.
Right.
And the lawmakers went there to lift the martial law, right? So tell us then, where does it leave us now with all of this?
Well, former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo now has into an appeals process after receiving a 23-year sentence as a principal participant in what the court defined as a top-down insurrection. And like mentioned earlier, prosecutors are also appealing acquittals while new trials are unfolding for other former ministers, including Park Sung-jae, like we said. But beyond the legal procedures, this case has become something larger in Korean society. It's a record of who defended democracy when it was tested, and a reminder that constitutional order ultimately held because ordinary citizens stepped forward.
Exactly.
They were brave enough to come to the National Assembly.
Yep. No, really. Really is. All right, guys, we're going to move on to other major issues at hand. But first, this is Dreamcatcher with Justice. In the studio for a special issue, Task Force. And man, we got to talk about this.
Oof.
All of a sudden, there was a couple of times where everyone thought they were stock geniuses. There were genius investors during COVID, where everybody was basically making money. Everything was going up. So I don't know why you were a genius, but everybody was talking stock. Now nowadays, people are talking about the stocks again.
Yes.
As we know, South Korea's financial markets crossing a major milestone.
Right.
That some people were saying unrealistic. I didn't think it was. It was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen this quickly, to be honest with you. Let's talk about it.
From the very beginning?
I always thought that the Kospi and the Kosdaq are just way undervalued.
That's true.
Considering the size of our economy, there's no way it should be the index should be that low.
Exactly.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, these days, whenever people get together, it feels like everyone talks about stocks, whether they own any, which ones they are holding, and how much they've made. And of course, that doesn't really apply to me, but I hear you've been doing pretty well, SJ.
Not me, my kids. My kids are doing really well, yeah.
And all of this buzz comes down to one thing. The Kospi's been on a remarkable run. On this past Thursday, the Kospi Index broke through the 5,000 mark for the first time in history, officially opening what's now being called the Kospi 5,000 era, 5,000비 시대. And at the same time, the tech-heavy Kosdaq also surged, and just days later, trading curbs known as a sidecar were triggered due to extreme volatility. And what makes this moment even more striking is that President Lee Jae-myung had openly promised a Kospi 5,000 era during his election campaign, a pledge that critics dismissed as like fantasy at the time. And back in May last year, when Lee Jae-myung was still a presidential candidate, he publicly pledged to usher in a Kospi 5,000 era, and to show commitment, he himself invested 40 million won, roughly $30,000 into domestic ETFs that track the Korean stock market. And he didn't stop there. He also promised to invest 1 million won every month for 5 years, eventually building a 100 million won portfolio, and even revealed his ETF holdings on YouTube, his YouTube channel. So the president himself has been highly proactive in promoting South Korea's stock market and driving the current boom. In the meantime, today Kospi gained 135.26 points from the previous trading day to close at 5,084.85. Kosdaq gained 18.18 points, closing at 1,082.59. Above 5,000, above 1,000. Each.
Kosdaq is also very much undervalued, and so now the Kosdaq surged after the Kospi was slowing down a bit to just kind of even out here. So let's go back to the Kospi 5,000 era and to talk about the speed of the rally, because this is the crazy. I just feel like it was like yesterday we were talking about 4,000.
Yes.
Right? It was just yesterday we were talking about 4,000.
Right. The Kospi first crossed 4,000 in late October last year. Then, in just about 3 months, it surged another 1,000 points to pass 5,000. And on the morning of January 22nd, the index opened near 4,980 and crossed 5,000 within the first minute of trading, eventually climbing above 5,012 intraday. For context, after reaching 3,000 for the first time in 2021, the Kospi spent more than 4 years stuck in the 2,000 range. And what changed was a combination of factors like political uncertainty eased after the new government took office, and capital market reforms, including amendments to commercial law, boosted confidence, and most importantly, a powerful rally in semiconductors driven by global AI investment. As you know, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, Korea's two chip giants, surged dramatically last year. Samsung by more than 125% and SK Hynix by over 270%. And together they now account for nearly 40% of the Kospi's total market capitalization, which stands at around 1,424 trillion won. So I can say this has been very much a chip-led rally.
Yeah, the crazy thing is Samsung Electronics stocks has split so many times.
Right.
And the thing about Samsung is that it's a blue chip, but it moves very slowly. Like it's very stagnant. But to surge 125%, that's bonkers. That's crazy.
Right.
Again, it wasn't just the Kospi. Kosdaq, tech-heavy Kosdaq, also performing incredibly well.
Yes, on this Monday, the Kosdaq jumped so sharply that the exchange triggered a sidecar, which is a temporary halt on program trading designed to cool excessive volatility. And this happened after Kosdaq 150 futures surged more than 6%, while the underlying index jumped over 3% simultaneously. And in simple terms, automated buying was paused for 5 minutes because prices were rising too fast. And it's a rare move, and it shows just how overheated parts of the market became in a very, very short period.
So there are a lot of people who are celebrating. My son is very happy. In the way
You're
that
happy, honestly. You're happy too, right?
I'm happy because I invested well in my kids. My daughter also has a portfolio not as big as my son's. She's doing very well too. She's doing very well. My son is...
I think Roha is richer than I am.
No, she doesn't have as much. No, I think you definitely have more money than that. But Aaron definitely has more cash than I do with this portfolio. He's like 4 or 5x on his portfolio already. But while people like me or my kids are celebrating, there's also a darker emotional side emerging.
Yeah, what we are seeing now is a growing wave of investment FOMO, short of for fear of missing out. As people hear stories of friends or colleagues making hundreds of millions of won in stocks, some began to feel left behind, and psychologists describe this as a form of social anxiety, originally a marketing term now widely used to explain stress linked to rapid wealth gaps.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous.
Am I too late? Should I go in now? That's what people talk about.
Yeah,
these
you have to
days,
be
right?
very careful because last week the robot stocks skyrocketed.
Right.
And people went in on Friday thinking, all right, this is going to keep going. Friday there was a huge dip. It was a huge
Right.
sell-off. And some people are like minus 20% right now. It did go back slightly, but psychologically, you keep thinking, "Oh, I'm missing out, miss out." This is when they get you. When the chemies, the ants, the retail investors come in, that's when all the institutional and the foreign
That's
investors
right,
start
that's
pulling out,
right.
and it's a mess. So the big question: does Kospi 5,000 mean Korea has finally escaped the so-called Korea discount?
At least not yet.
Yup,
That's
not
what
yet.
experts
Yeah,
warn.
yep.
Analysts point out that despite the massive rally, the Kospi's forward price to earnings ratio is still around 10.6, which remains relatively low by global standards. That's because corporate earnings forecasts have been rising even faster than stock prices. And experts say the next stage depends on what they call expansion and diversification.
Exactly. Man, should have invested in stocks rather than buying wine.
Maybe it's not too late.
But
You
my
can
but my
start
wine
by
the
today.
wines that I have has gone up in price too. So it's
I think
good.
wines are more precious than stocks.
But then I drink it and it's
More
gone.
valuable.
I drink it and it's gone.
But it gives you happiness, at least, right?
So does money. So that. We're gonna take a short song break. Come back with our last issue to cover here. This is Tomorrow by Together with Higher Than Heaven. Man,
Oh, I'm hungry.
there's a lot of food talk that's going on in the studio
So
today.
hungry. Are you hungry?
I'm always hungry. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm always hungry too.
I'm actually not always hungry.
I don't know why. I'm always hungry.
It's because you're so skinny. That's why.
No,
Gosh, man.
I don't have.
Stop bragging.
I don't have enough time to eat something.
Okay.
That's why I'm hungry.
Because you only eat salad.
Yeah.
You only eat salad and yogurt and stuff like that.
Yogurt, Greek yogurt, not just like regular yogurt.
No, we're talking about Heshik. When we're going to have our next Heshik is what we're talking about. Third topic, South Korea officially putting the AI Basic Act into force this past Thursday on January 22nd. And what makes it significant is that it's the world's first comprehensive law governing artificial intelligence, not just partial regulation, but a full legal framework. Sian, let's talk about this.
Yes, like you said, this is Korea's first overarching AI law. Until now, AI-related issues were handled through older laws like the Telecommunications Business Act or the Information Network Act. But those were designed for traditional digital services, not for AI systems that generate content, make predictions, or influence real-life decisions. So the government decided a brand new framework was needed. And the AI Basic Act tries to do two things at once. First, promote the AI industry while also protecting society from risk like deepfakes, misinformation, discrimination, and human rights violations. So it's not just about regulation on the promotion side. The government will create a national AI master plan every 3 years and strengthen the National AI Strategy Committee and support R&D by both central and local governments. And the law explicitly says the state should respect the creativity of AI developers and help grow the industry. So on paper, this is meant to be both an industrial growth policy and a safety framework at the same time.
Deepfake is a big problem.
Right.
Just last week or 2 weeks ago, I forget when, one of our listeners, Buddy Boy, made a deepfake of me doing aegyo.
Really?
And it was so
terrible thing.
It was
Terrible stuff. I don't
such
want
a terrible thing
I
to
don't
look
want to
at.
see it.
Even myself.
Even in my dreams. Oh no.
No, you have to understand. It was bad. it was my face, but it was bad. I was so traumatized.
Did you throw up?
I had to swallow it because it was on air. But it was bad. It was
my
the worst thing I've
goodness.
seen all year so far. We got to stop this from happening. That's why we got laws now. But the industry, though, seems nervous about this. What parts are causing the most concerns?
3 areas stand out: high impact AI disclosure requirements and explainability. High impact AI refers to systems used in sensitive fields like healthcare, energy, hiring, or loan screening. Basically anything that can seriously affect people's lives or rights. And companies operating in in these areas must introduce human oversight and safety systems. And for now, the government says only full autonomous level 4 self-driving cars clearly fall into this category, but the industry believes that medical AI, hiring algorithms, and energy systems could soon be included as the technology advances. And another controversial part is labeling AI content. Under the law, if a service uses generative AI, users must be informed in advance, and AI-generated content must be clearly labeled, not just hidden in metadata, but through visible text or audio notices. And this especially worries content creators. Even like partial AI use could force them to label their work as AI-generated, which they fear could devalue creative content. And the government argues this is a minimum safety measure to prevent deep fake abuse, and says it aligns with global trends. And still, many companies feel the rules are evolving too quickly and unpredictably.
Like, it's getting better and better. I know there are some companies that are using the AI watermarks, right? It's just that not everybody uses it. And it's still, there's like loopholes, and it's still very ambiguous right now. But there's also something called the explainability.
Right. The law says people affected by AI decisions should receive meaningful explanations about how outcomes were produced as much as technically possible. But here is the reality. Globally, only a few companies like Google are considered capable of offering true explainable AI at scale. So for many developers, this feels more like a declaration of intent than something they can realistically implement today, right now. In the meantime, the government did announce a grace period. Inspections and fines, which can reach up to 30 million won, will be postponed for at least a year. But even with that delay, startups and small companies are anxious about this law. The enforcement rules span more than 400 pages, and many details are left to future decrees and guidelines. And larger corporations can afford legal teams, but smaller startups often can't. And we're also seeing confusion in gaming and creative industries. Developers say the rules feel vague. They ask questions like, does AI used during development count? And what about external AI APIs? And who is responsible? The platforms, the developers, or the AI provider? These unanswered questions are creating real uncertainty.
You know, I was talking to my son, and my son, when he grows up, he wants to be an architect.
Oh, cool.
And so he's been like designing homes, and he was like to explain to me, he's like, this home is going to be fully AI, right? And I was like, Aaron, guess what? Your job might be taken by AI. He was like, what? He's like, what? How's that possible?
No, there must be some parts that only human being can do.
Those are one of the things that might be taken, right? I mean, there's a lot of jobs at hand that might be taken
Don't
by...
ruin your son's dreams. He's only 6 years old.
Yeah, well, he has to find another job, you know, find maybe another job that won't be taken by
Like what,
by
developers?
AI. Developers are definitely being taken by AIs, right? Radio hosts.
Can be taken by AI.
Can't be taken.
Remember Ari?
Adi, that's why Adi was fired. That's why Adi was fired.
She got fired.
Nobody liked Adi. Nobody liked Adi. And then, you know, I could converse with everybody here. I don't know if, I mean, AI probably can't, but there's no heart. And how many of the AI will dance to again and again and stuff like that, right?
I thought you were T.
I am T.
But you sounded like F.
Zooming out a bit here. I'm only F for myself. What does this tell us about Korea's broader approach to technology?
Well, Korea tends to move fast, especially with new tech. But culturally, there's also a strong expectation that the government steps in early to prevent social harm, whether that's online abuse, deepfakes, or algorithm discrimination. Plus, it's also worth noting that Korea isn't waiting for global consensus. It's positioning itself as a rule setter in AI governance. And we should be very proud of Korea's new rule regulation.
I like this message. Joe Boxer, seeing you for the first time, Joe. Joe Boxer says, AI makes your creative content less valuable. The creators might actually have to do their own work again. Your creators better stop using AIs. Come from your mind. That's what you got to do. Ari was fun. Ari was the worst.
Hadi was fun.
That's why she was fired. Ari was
Now there's Arirang on TV.
Arirang's a little bit better now. Arirang's a little better. Anyway, Seyoung, thank you so much for that.
Taeyong's better, right?
Seyoung's definitely better than Ari. Thank you very much for this. Have a safe rest of your week. We'll see you again on Tuesday.
I'll see you next week.
Sending her out of the studio, this is Yoon Jong-shin singing 인공지능 or AI.